Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and today the plan is to try and get this engine back into the 680. Okay, so the plan today, as I said, is to try and get the engine gearbox back into the 680, but before we do that, there's a couple of things I have to go through and do. So, thanks for all your feedback this week. It has really helped out. I have decided that I'm going to go with the electronic distributor. I'm just going to check it out, make sure this is still all good and there's no damage to it, or it's all working. You guys have filled me in on that, but this, by the sound of things, is going to be a much better option than the old job. So this will go in. For those of you who didn't see in the comments, basically this is a electronic distributor off of a later sort of 280ZX, which is just set and forget, much better than points, and yeah, so this sounds like it's the way to go. Moving on, I have one thing I did notice is you probably can't see it there. The clutch fork that I put into the car, I looked at that and I looked at the slave cylinder I've got. The slave cylinder I've got has got a little tiny pin. The clutch fork, where the pin sits, has got a hole in it, so the pin's just going to go straight through. It's not going to work. I realised that I actually had the wrong clutch fork, and one of you guys, an eagle-eyed viewer, actually noticed that the collar that I have inside is actually for a Type 1 gearbox, and this is a Type 2 gearbox. Now, I know this is getting very nerdy, but basically the Type 1 collar is shorter, so it's probably not going to engage the clutch. And that's going to be a big issue. So what I'm going to do now is I've got to pull the gearbox off to change this fork over to this one, and I'm going to do some measuring and see if this current system will actually work, and if there's enough travel. If not, I may have to think of something else. Okay, so I just went through then and did a bit of measuring. I found out roughly where the clutch would start disengaging, where the thrust bearing would start touching the spring plate here, and measured it from where the bell housing bolts on, and then I measured from the bell housing to where the thrust bearing would be out at its full stretch, and I mounted the slave cylinder here so I could work it out, and it would not, basically at full stretch, this would just start touching the spring plate, so it's not going to work. One of you guys sent through the actual diagram of these, which was really helpful, because this early one has a distance from the where the fork sits to the edge of the collar of about 16 millimeters. The later one that I need to have with this gearbox actually has a distance of 25 millimeters. Now, I don't have access to the collar right away, or at least nothing close, and to keep things moving, I am probably going to go through now and refit that the other extra spacer and this other bearing back to the gearbox. Now, you should always change the thrust bearings out when you change the clutch. This thrust bearing still seems like it's in good condition, but it's definitely not ideal using the same one again. But beggars can't be choosers, and I want to try and keep this thing moving forward, and I don't want to be held up, so this will be done, and it may just mean I'll have to pull the gearbox out a bit earlier later. But for now, let's swap this all back over, get the new fork all installed, get everything in and working, and yeah, and we'll keep moving forward. Okay, so I've now gone through, I've fitted the old bearing back to the collar. The difference in size between the factory one for this gearbox and this early one is 9 millimeters. And so that's what I've gone through, and I pressed it on, so I've got that exact same difference, so now it's 9 millimeters closer. So hopefully now this will actually engage the clutch when I put it all together. Now, as I said, it's not ideal using the same bearing again, but beggars can't be choosers in this case, and I want to keep going. So time to fit it all back up again. But before I do that, a lot of you were complaining about the look of the gearbox. I was thinking the gearbox is completely covered, but by the sounds of things and actually looking at some photos, you do see quite a bit of the bell housing in the engine bay. So I'm just going to give this gearbox a little bit more of a tidy up first, give it a little coat of paint, and then we'll put it back in. All right, guys, that looks a lot better. I didn't go to town with the preparation or anything. It's just tidying it up, give it a quick paint so it looks a lot nicer, and let's refit it to the engine, and we'll be back to where we finished last week. Okay, so the gearbox is mounted back on. I might have to have a check of it, but for now, I think the next thing to do is actually swap these cars around, and that 911 comes off that hoist, and the Z needs to go up there so we can get everything in place to put the engine in. Yeah! After a bunch of backwards and forwards and wrestling around, I've got the 911 out the back and the 680 on the hoist. Now, I've got a bit of a help coming to help me put the engine in. Before he gets here, I'm going to start stripping off all the panels off of the front of the car so that we don't have to bump anything when we're putting the engine in. We can just take it all off and sit it aside so we don't have that risk. Even though I measured this and got it in there, once I put the gearbox on, the fork was actually pushed all the way forward and it wasn't going to work. It would have been engaging the clutch, basically just sitting there. So this is going to come back off, put the other one back on, and we'll see what happens. Alright guys, well I've got this all bolted back up again, back to the original bearing because the other bearing was pushing hard against the spring tine, so that wasn't going to work. In any case, I've got a local kid here for work experience who's going to have a look. Some of you guys might know Benny, aka the Mechanical Stig from Mighty Car Mods. He is going to give me a hand here to put this engine in because it's going to be a real pig to try and do it by myself. So let's start wheeling around to the front of the car. All right, that bolted in really well. So slight persuasion on the engine mount to get it straight. Looks like one of them was slightly bent. Benny's under there jacking up the back of the gearbox, and it's going to be my job to slide underneath there and get some bolts in, and we should have the engine in the car. Yeah! Alright guys, well that went in wasn't too difficult getting in underneath the car, bolted it all up. Thank you, Benny.
Pleasure, man. It was pretty simple, so nice and easy to whack an engine in that's supposed to actually be in there for once.
Yeah, that's it. It's not.
So,
it's not
a bit different working on a Z that's got an L series instead of an RB.
Yeah. If you guys haven't seen it on Mighty Car Mods, Benny and the guys put an RB26 into their Japanese S30. So it's slightly different to this, and you should check out Benny's current series on MCM TV2, Cresta versus Drag Week. It's really good. I've been watching it. It's up to about episode 6.
Yeah, we're at episode 6 now. It comes out every Friday until we're finished, so I think we've got 2 or 3 episodes probably left until the story's out.
Yep.
And then, we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah. So Benny's got a really plain looking, I'll be polite, plain looking little old Toyota Cresta, which looks like the Australian Toyota Cressida that runs in the 9s, if you guys haven't seen it. So watch that.
Check it out.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm going to keep doing this. Benny's got to head off. I'm going to keep working. All right, now the engine's in. I think it's time to get it up in the air, and let's have a look at what's going on underneath the car. First time I've actually had this thing on the lift. I'm keen to see what's going on underneath. So it's interesting actually having this up here on the hoist and having a look. So I'm going to have to get in now and do a bit of painting and tidying up on the underside here. You can see where I've done my repairs here, and it's sort of bubbled up the stone guard. I'm going to get the wire wheel out and clean this all up here, prime it all and re-stone guard it. Same on this side. Yeah, same thing. You can see the repairs, the back of my repairs. It's all solid. It just needs a little bit of TLC under here and it'll be good. But you can see there's plenty of cobwebs and overspray dust and bits and pieces, so let's get in and tidy things up. I've gone through and I've put some seam sealer over all of these bits where I've welded it and just made sure all the seams are nice and neat and covered. So now I'm going to go through, put a coat of primer. I've wiped it all down. It looks a bit dirty because of overspray and stuff, but wiped it all down. I'll go over and I'll put some stone guard over all this stuff, and then I'll come back and some GMH black, just tidy it all up, and it should look nice and neat and tidy. Okay, I've just done the stone guarding over the bits that I need to. That looks so much neater. Man, I love having a hoist. It really is nice to be able to get under here and just tidy everything up. All the places I've welded has all been stone guarded. I'm gonna have to come back through and spray. You can see the overspray that's on here around the edges. I'm gonna come back and spray all of this in the satin black, the whole underside. But I'll let the stone guard set up first. All right, well, I am over the moon. We have an engine in, we have the underside mostly tidied up. We're really moving forward on this build. I am so happy that there's a light at the end of the tunnel now. It's looking good. In any case, that is all I have time for today. So that is definitely time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, after last week's painted wooden roll cage story, I thought we could start a series on the greatest cheats in motorsport. Weight is a big factor in motor racing, and in the mid-80s, Formula One's Tyrrell Racing was struggling to keep up with the pack, which was all using turbochargers. This was a technology Tyrrell couldn't afford at the time, but it also meant that without the turbo, their car was lighter than allowed in the class. The Tyrrell cars used the water reservoir to spray over the engine during the race for extra cooling. What they did was run the water down during the first half of the race to make the car much lighter than allowed, and this obviously in turn gave them a significant weight advantage. Then at the final pit stop, they would top up the water with 140 pounds of lead shot mixed in with it, so at the end of the race, the car was the correct weight. It was also found that the water they were using was 27.5% aromatics, or in other words, fuel.
All right, that is a big step forward. We have the engine in the car, which is awesome.
It's great to have an engine in a car.
Yes.
Some of you have commented, we've got a lot of cars without engines, which nobody wants.
Big thank you to Benny for giving me a hand to put that in. Make sure you go and check out the Cresta versus Drag Week on MCM TV2.
Also, a huge shout out to Band of Rasmus. Thank you so much for supplying us with this excellent music. We're really enjoying it, and that was really, really nice of you. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so all the music in this video is all from Band of Rasmus. There's links to their contacts and stuff in the description. They're actually out of...
Detroit?
Yeah, Detroit, Michigan. Yeah, if you're in that area, go and check them out. They do gigs and stuff around
Ypsilanti? We're not sure.
Ypsilanti, yeah.
Ypsilanti.
Yeah.
We
It's really weird spelling, but you did spell it, phonetically spell it out. But yeah, it's like that.
Okay.
All right, guys. As always, please like, subscribe, Facebook, Instagram, merch. You got the deal.
See you next week.
See you guys. Shall we drop a bit?
I just want to get them started before there's any weight on it. Yeah. It's in.
Yeah.
So now you have the fun job of getting under and gearbox crossover bolts in.